To us, magic sounds like this extraordinary thing, pulling a rabbit out of the hat, coming out of nowhere. But it's here, it's real, and the more that we are open to the unseen, to the energies of this world, to abundance and manifesting, to calling in and growing, the more we'll be able to call magic into our lives. Join me as I share stories, wisdom, and curiosity around connecting with your higher frequency, tapping into the synchronicities of the universe, and opening up to the unseen possibilities that this world has to offer. I am your host, Dayna Faye, and this is the Ordinary Magic Podcast. Today, I am talking with Emily Greene, known professionally as Emily the Medium. She is highly acclaimed psychic medium who specializes in supporting families connecting to the energies of their children, which are also called spirit babies, at all phases of their journey, whether they're struggling with fertility challenges or in the preconception phase, or even while they're pregnant. In addition, Emily also supports families in raising their sensitive children, helping them to acclimate to Earth, as well as helping individuals understand and master their own innate intuitive abilities. Emily has just published her first book all about communicating with spirit babies and what she has learned from her years of mediumship working with spirit babies. Her book is called A Cosmic Bond, Communicating with Your Spirit Babies from Preconception to Birth. And Emily, I actually just finished your book last night. I loved it. It was so good. I have a little girl named Mia, and I had heard of conscious conception maybe like a year before we conceived, and I really wanted to go get into it, but it was more on like a, I would say, trendy spiritual way instead of actually learning how can I tune in with my spirit baby prior to her being here. And the cards just fell. And I would say, as I look back on my journey, that I did connect with her, but in a subtle way that wasn't like, oh yeah, I was telepathically communicating with her. But looking back at my journal and just how she kind of forced her way a year earlier than we expected onto this planet, it was like, yeah, that was all communicated. Like there was this all of a sudden going from my husband and I thinking we didn't want to conceive for another year to being kind of like, oh, I think I want a baby. Like, I think I want a baby now. And I'm starting to realize that that was Mia's spirit energy working through my own psyche, I feel like, of being like, hey, I want to come in. I want to come in through you guys, and I'm going to make it happen.
Completely. Well, I love this story. Well, first of all, thank you, Dayna. I'm so happy to be here and very happy to connect with you and your audience. And I love this story because I think it illustrates what I talk about and teach on a lot in my work, which is the power of timing. And that's the interesting thing, is that we have our timing, and it's like, okay, next year or 6 months from now, or when I hit X milestone or get to this place, or when I get the promotion, or when I change careers, and sometimes it is dependent on our physical reality and our physical circumstances. But other times these energies have a very specific plan and idea of when they want to come in that can kind of conflict with ours in some way or another. And so they will do their absolute best to get in when they're looking to get in, which may actually be a little bit different than what we were thinking. And so I have no doubt that's exactly what your daughter did. And very common for people to have that experience where, okay, we're waiting a year. And then all of a sudden you get smacked with this like, whoa, I need a baby right now. It's like there's almost like a sense of urgency to it, not nervous, sweaty urgency, but just this solid knowing of this needs to happen now. And then it does happen. And it's always magical when you look back on those experiences. So I'd love to hear about your story.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. And thanks so much for being here today and sharing with our audience. And to back it up a little bit, can you first share about what does it mean to be a medium? I know that, you kind of just started out as a medium helping all sorts of clients, and now you've niched down to really helping clients speak with their babies, whether that's past, present, or future. Yeah. So if you can explain for people who are new to mediumship, what does that mean in simple terms? And then what does it mean to connect with your spirit babies?
Well, I think, medium is such a great term for many different kind of modalities of communication. Well, we could think about even just on the physical plane, someone being a medium or a mediator. If you look at the root of that word, it means being an in-between. It's being an in-between, a mediator between one party and another party. And that is literally what I do. I'm just not doing it all the time with physical people. I'm doing it with non-physical energies. And so at the beginning, that was working with people's past loved ones who were interested in connecting with their loved ones on the other side. It's sort of how I began my spiritual business. That's primarily what I did. That is all of what I did, really, alongside some other healing work. And that was really my sweet spot for a very long time. And I still love it. And I absolutely still practice it. It's just not the primary, the main focus that I was having. And I tell this story that I was doing mediumship happily until about the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020. And there was some other shifts that kind of happened before that. But at that time, I got this very strong messaging that it was actually important for me to shift my focus and my work from assisting the transition of death to the afterlife, from transitioning the communication from the afterlife into life again. So this kind of reincarnation cycle, a soul looking to join a family, a soul looking to start a life, rather than a soul talking to a soul who had just ended their physical incarnation. And that it was important to start focusing on these kind of incoming energies, or what I sometimes call incoming souls, the souls of our children who are looking to join families and begin their incarnations. And so I think that that the terminology can really have quite a broad definition, because again, it is just being a mediator from one realm and one frequency to another realm and another frequency. And that's really just what I'm doing, whether I'm doing that with a past loved one or a pet or a spirit baby or a spirit guide or whatever it is. It's just really communication between these two places.
That's beautiful. And as I was reading your book about spirit babies, and I feel like my audience is somewhat new, really new to this concept. And I thought, how beautiful is it that we can release some control and surrender? And how you were talking about, a lot of what you focus on is that spirit babies have a certain timing of coming through, and we have our own timing. And when you were talking about humans having their own timings, it sounded a lot like in our head, very logical, very mind-based, and not so much intuitive. But yet to know that our spirit baby is actually working on the other side on their specific timing. And also, I would say that they're a bit of our spirit guides for knowing actually what the right timing is for us.
Completely. Exactly.
For somebody who this is like a completely new concept for, what a breath of fresh air that maybe like we could learn to release a little bit of control, mental control that we have.
Absolutely.
And bring it back into our intuition.
Completely. I love what you're saying. And I think it's so key. And you're exactly right. When I'm talking about our human timing, I am talking about a very kind of logical based timing, which is natural. We live on planet Earth and we run on the clocks that exist here. And it's just the way that it goes. In ancient civilizations and things like that, they didn't have a concept of time. They measured how old they were by, I'm 12 summers old, or I'm 12 winters old, or 12 autumns old, right? There wasn't like 12 years old or 6 months old or this sort of thing. It was really measured by the seasons. And so now we're in this modern time and we have more technology on the planet than we ever have. And the advancements are advancing, and artificial intelligence and all of these things. And I think that as humans, we just naturally cling on to time and timing and perfectionism in some ways as a means of trying to kind of hold on to some semblance of control of this physical reality, because the reality is that it's turbulent to live on planet Earth. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of, there's a lot of agendas. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of input and output needed and all of these kinds of things. And so it's certainly not like a knock on anybody who is moving through their conception journey logically, where it's like, I think in some ways it's necessary, where we have to kind of like, does this make sense for me? But what I'm suggesting, what I'm proposing is that when we're really running on and we're tuning into the clock of anything outside of the physical world, whether it's a spirit baby or an opportunity that's coming in for us at a certain time, or whatever the case may be, is that it's not always going to make sense on paper to us and our logical minds. It might make sense in our bodies more, in our intuition and things like this. And so one of the things that I talk about is I talk to a lot of couples who are new to this concept, or that this is a new idea that they're opening up to. And they have this plan of, okay, we want to start trying for a baby at this point in time, right? And they make all of the decisions on, okay, we want to have a baby at this point in time between the two partners, which is fine. Okay, you just got a new job. And by that point, we'll have great benefits. And, we'll move into a new house by that time so that we'll have an extra room for the baby and all these kinds of things. And again, all that stuff is important. I'm not saying like, don't worry about any of those things. What I am saying though, is that in that process, what a lot of couples don't realize is they're not actually involving the energy of their child in that decision, which some people don't even know is an option. And it's actually, this is something that's really important in this time that we're on the planet, is that if someone only took one thing away from this interview today, it would be that in this time, that the energies of your children, the souls of your children, your spirit babies, whatever you want to call them, they are looking to create contact and to create a relationship with you before they incarnate, however subtle that happens to be. You said you had an experience that with your daughter that was very subtle, and it wasn't like, fireworks and booming loud noises. It was very subtle, and it was kind of coming through your own consciousness, which is fine and perfect. And it can happen that way. But they are looking to be involved in the process, involved in some of the decision making. And if they're not, then things can kind of seem like they are wrong, right? And this is where a lot of people get into, where they think that, okay, we're having infertility, or we're not able to conceive, or this sort of thing. And sometimes that may be true. There may be an actual physical fertility issue or something that is going on. But other times what I'm proposing is that there's just another member of the conversation that hasn't been allowed in. And so opening up to connecting with your spirit babies is almost just sort of like, oh yeah, you're involved in this process too. This is your life that's beginning. Not only are we having a child or bringing a child into this planet, calling in a child into our lives, you are also starting a new life. Right. And so why wouldn't you have that party at the table? Why wouldn't you have that party there to communicate and talk about different things that were important to them? So that's what I'm proposing, is that there is this kind of deconditioning, I feel, that is needed from the logical mind into the intuition. I've talked to so many different people who their doctors tell them, oh, it's not going to be possible for you to conceive, or to conceive like this, or, you're ovulating here, but then the person actually is like, no, I think I'm ovulating at this point, and where they trust themselves. And then things end up working for them, and things end up moving in the right direction for them. So I think that so much of this process right now of conception, and even in conversations around infertility, there is this real initiation into deeper levels of trusting our intuition and self-trust of our bodies, and tuning out a little bit from the physical reality. And that actually in parenting, and I'd be curious to hear your experience around this, Dayna, but that actually in parenting, that trust of self, trust of intuition is imperative for parents now. Not just now, always, but I think especially now. There's a great level of importance to that. And so there's almost this kind of initiation that's happening in the preconception and conception phases that kind of prepare us for what's necessary and what's needed to support these children through pregnancy, birth, and beyond.
I feel that so much. This book is for everyone, no matter what part of the journey they're on: preconception, conception, pregnancy, birth, and afterwards, raising a kid. You have a little bit for everyone in it. And a big takeaway that I took from it is, like you said, I knew you could communicate with your spirit babies, but like to be reminded of it over and over again as I read your book and doing it in different ways, and you shared different people's stories, I did feel myself feeling a little insecure once in a while by like some of the stories of women being like, oh, my baby spoke to me and told me exactly this. And I was like, oh, I didn't have that. All I had was really like, by my second trimester, I could feel this energy that wasn't mine. And luckily I was working with an intuitive at the time, an intuitive coach. And she reassured me that that's your baby. Like that's what you're feeling. And then once she was able to reassure me that, because it was subtle, I was able to then, especially I would always feel her when I was driving in the car. That's just a good time to be listening to music. And I would talk out loud to Mia. And then I would feel this energy that was like, not mine. And I'm like, oh my God, here she is. Like, this is so cool. But I didn't have the experience of like actually really talking with her, but you provide meditations in the book and different tools. I imagine it's a muscle. And my big takeaway of what you just said is that, yes, we can communicate with our spirit babies, but also your intuition, like building your own intuition. I would maybe argue that that's like the very
You
first
got
step.
it. You're exactly right. You're precisely right. And that's the thing is it's funny because that's another facet of my work is intuitive development. And, it was actually really funny again at that same time frame at the end of 2019 at the beginning of 2020, it was a time where I got the instructive to kind of really ramp up the way that I was educating and teaching and sharing about intuitive development work. And I know now that it was because there is this intricate link between us, the parents, the receivers of these beautiful energies, opening and fine tuning and building confidence in our intuitive channels. Not that it has to happen at a certain point, but it certainly is valuable to do that before conception if we can. But wherever it is that you're receiving this information, it is never too late to start building a relationship with your intuition, opening your channels. And even in your experience, Dayna, I think too, I talk to a lot of people who have very subtle experiences of the information that they're receiving in their intuition. And it's funny for me at the beginning when I was developing my abilities, I couldn't believe that it was that subtle. I was like, I remember telling my mentor at the time, I was like, I just got this, but it was like so subtle and so quiet that there's no way it could be real. And she was like, that's it. That's what you're looking for. And I was like, that's it? Like that? And she was like, yeah. I was like, that's almost like imperceptible. That's impossible. How am I supposed to pay attention to that? And of course, I fine-tuned and kind of turned up the volume more and more over the years. And so it's less subtle for me now, but the subtle experience is still incredibly valid. But to come back to your point and to what you're saying, I think is so important what you highlighted here. And I just want to put an exclamation point over it is that the experience of developing our intuitive abilities and really learning our what I call the unique mechanism to our intuition and how it's actually working for us as an individual. We are not just a bio individual in the ways of our physical health and vitality. We're bio individual in the way that our intuition or psychic abilities are communicating to us and working through us. So it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing because I talk to lots of families who are like, okay, I tried to do the meditation and nothing happened. Or I asked for a sign and I didn't get anything. Or I tried to open up my energy field and I had no idea what I was doing. Right. And so these are just people who maybe have never, these are totally new concepts to them and they've just never explored the world in the realm of subtle energetics, which is not a bad thing. They're just kind of getting into it through the route of the spirit baby work. And so, I'll kind of teach those people and guide those people, okay, do this meditation, work on this. But sometimes it can take time and that's okay. It's definitely not like, there's other ways to get around communicating with our spirit babies, even if we don't feel as intuitively open as potentially we could be. There are ways around that. And they're always looking for ways to kind of work with us and to work with the best ways to communicate with us. But anyway, to sum that up, I just really want to highlight what you're saying, which is that it's almost more important to work with intuitive development first before we start parlaying into communication and then getting confused when something doesn't happen.
Yes, because I feel like if you first work on your intuitive communication, your subtle energies, then even if your baby is communicating with you, which they are, like I have no doubt that Mia was communicating with me, but in such a subtle way that I wasn't picking it up. But I believe she was kind of working through me in my life. And then I chose the route of a home birth. So my next kind of milestone was really building that intuition while I was pregnant and really opening myself up to the subtle energies more and more because I knew that was such a big piece to how I wanted my birth to go.
Completely. It's massive. It's huge. It's so, so important. And the other thing that I wanted to say with what you were saying was like, it sometimes is like that where it's working through you. You are not necessarily conscious of the fact that like, oh, this is my daughter making me do this, but I'm doing this anyway. And I have had this experience so much. I'm in the process right now of trying to conceive or calling in a child. And it's the energy of my first child is like very tricky. Like I could say she made me like go back to therapy and she like led me to this very specific wellness practitioner. And she like kind of lined up all of these different things in the last few months. And if I didn't do the work that I did, I would have just been like, oh, I'm feeling called to go back to therapy just because I'm going back, or I'm feeling called to see this wellness practitioner. But I know because I know what I know and I, know the energy and the communication, I'm like, oh, this is what she wants. Okay, perfect. So I'm doing this. I'm kind of following her lead and I'm getting these different things kind of lined up for myself, pre-conception, basically leading up to the point of conception. So yeah.
That's amazing. And it's like, well, now you're the teacher and this medium for conceiving and the process. So I imagine that you're going to be initiated as well in your own way.
Totally. Completely. It's funny you bring that up because I've been reflecting on this lately, and the information and the teachings that I have really discovered through my work together, and all of these beautiful stories of people that I've worked with who, against all odds have brought a child into their family, or against all odds have found the partner that they needed to, have a child with, or whatever the story is. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, I've also worked with a lot of people with very challenging, difficult, painful stories of loss and multiple miscarriages and stillbirth and all of these things. And that's very real. I mean, I talk to at least one person a day who has had a deeply painful, challenging, and heartbreaking experience. And so I think for me, it's holding this kind of dichotomy of, I'm aware of all these beautiful experiences and all these beautiful stories, and I'm also aware of all of the challenge and heartbreak and pain that is possible, and that people that I know and clients that I've worked with have traversed through. So I think for me, it's kind of holding that dichotomy of just awareness. And that's really a big journey of mine on planet Earth, is just like I'm able to see things 360. I'm able to see things from all different perspectives, which can be, it is a beautiful thing. And it allows me to move through the world in a very open-minded, very curious, and very playful way. However, it also can sometimes be challenging because I can see all of the possibilities as well, good and bad. It could go like this, or it could go that way. It is challenging in my own kind of experience. And like you said, it certainly has been an initiation.
Wow. Well,
definitely.
Best of luck to your journey on that. I'm so excited for you. And in your book, you really did talk about the fact that, surrender is a big thing. One of my audience members, when I said, "Hey, do you have any questions for Emily the medium?" She said, "I don't know if this is really a question, but she just wanted me to share. So I would love to share this reflection of her." And
great.
She said, "Honestly, this topic feels painful because I had an abortion last summer because our third little boy was really sick. I don't even like to think of his soul because it brings on so much guilt and sadness that he never came earthside. So I'd probably want to ask about this, even though it hurts. So much good and deep healing has come from that very hard experience, though. So in a way, I try to think of it as a gift from him."
Yeah, that's beautiful and very real, and I talk to a lot of people who have had similar experiences, medical abortions, because of different sorts of genetic defects and disabilities and so on. And yeah, it's painful. And I mean, some people aren't, I preface this and I give this as a disclaimer in the book, that for some people, they're not ready for this topic, and that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes it can take 10, 15 years for somebody to be ready for the topic. And I do speak in the book about abortion. I felt it was very important to include that section in that chapter, because for so many people, and there's so many different reasons why somebody might choose that for themselves and their bodies, but I feel that there is a huge amount of healing and support and reassurance that's available from the souls of these children for their mothers. And so when this person is ready to receive that love and support and just truly unconditional love from the soul of this little boy who wasn't able to make his way into their family, that there is just unconditional amounts of love. And for the most part, if this family should decide to try again, that I'm sure that soul will decide to come and have a different experience and hopefully a healthy body, which I see that all the time as well. And, sometimes they just need to come back and try again, and they do, and they will.
And that's so beautiful. And again, the stories in your book, I feel like that's what was so healing to read. When I was 6 months postpartum, my first cousin had a stillborn baby at, I believe it was 39 weeks. And it just,
wow.
I feel shivers just even saying that today. It still rocks me. So I imagine it's rocks her every day, still. And she did have a beautiful story. Just a year later, she birthed her baby boy, a very healthy baby boy. And she did see a medium, I think a month before she birthed him. And that was incredibly helpful and healing for her to feel safe for the labor and delivery of this next child, and also to talk about her child that didn't survive. And anyway, it just, what I was reflecting on it is that a lot of what you teach in the book is that we don't always know what these souls are doing in regards to work on our soul's journey. We're all connected. These souls are all a part of kind of this path that we're walking.
I know. And I've worked with, I have family members who have had stillbirth as well. And a friend who just this past November had a stillbirth at 35 weeks. And the impact of this loss, but also the impact of this soul has made innumerable ripple effects on not only just her and her immediate family, but also her extended family. And everybody is feeling the impact and the ripple effects of this soul, not even in a bad way. She's really feeling like her son came, and he had 35 beautiful weeks in utero. Everything was perfect. It was an unexplained stillbirth. And his soul has just made the biggest mark on her and their family, and everybody feels him and has dreams about him and all these things. And so I think even in the most earth-shattering, heartbreaking moments, of course, the perspective and the reflection and the beauty most likely doesn't come right away. She's able to have this perspective, 6 months, 8 months after this tragic event happened, but she's been able to kind of find the understanding and the meaning and the beauty really in something so tragic. And I think that's really like a beautiful metaphor for life on planet Earth. It's beautiful and tragic, and sometimes both at the same time.
Beautifully tragic. And I mean, yes, just as you were saying that, my cousin's baby, her name is Sylvie. She was born on February 2nd, 2022. So 2/2/22 at 11:11 a.m. So even as fast forward, we're now in 2023. This morning, I, for some reason, looked at my phone at 11:11 and I just was like, oh, Sylvie, oh my goodness. I have no doubt that she's with some of our other family spirits, and just completely watching over us, which is so beautiful. And speaking of kind of all of this energy, we are clearly going through kind of a great change right now on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. And that's showing up energetically. That's also showing up in our 3D reality on the material plane. Things are changing, systems are crumbling, all that kind of stuff. And I seem to bring this up in every interview because I just love to hear your take on it, on what are we stepping through right now? I mean, we know this from a human design lens, we know this from an astrological lens, but like from your lens, when you're doing sessions with people or when you are working with your spirit baby clients, like what is happening right now?
What's happening? I know it's certainly an amazing and interesting time to be alive. And it's my belief and my perspective that every single one of us who is incarnated and alive and breathing right now is meant to be here for this time. And we really, in many ways, we came for these times, which seems kind of crazy, when we're here. But from the soul's perspective, we knew that there was something very important happening in this very specific period of time of especially the last 5 years, but even greater than that, we could say the last 10, 20, 25 years. And more into the future for the next 20, 25, 50, and 100 years, there's great changes happening. And I talk about this in the book. Some people say, okay, it's the age of Aquarius coming in, or I know in human design, they talk about 2027 being a big year. And there's all of these systems that are giving context for the energetic and planetary shifts that are happening. And from my perspective, and this is a big reason it's certainly not lost on me that I was basically kind of told in one of my meditations at the end of 2019 that there was a great shift coming. And I had no idea what that meant at the time. I was just like, this is great. It's 2019. It's New Year's Eve. This is amazing. And literally as the clock shifted from 11:59 to midnight on January 1st, 2020, I felt an energy come through my house. It was almost like this energy came through my house and kind of moved through almost like this like cosmic wind, and something was different. Nothing was the same. I really truly believed that. And so of course I had no idea what that meant at the time. And then the events of the last couple of years have played out, and the energies of the last couple of years have played out. And I think that it's more clear than ever that there was a palpable and profound shift that happened at that moment of time. And it didn't necessarily just happen at that exact moment on that exact day. It had been building and building and building. And it's not lost on me that there's an intense and profound and very close link between what we're experiencing and the crumbling and shifting and the consciousness raising and everything else, and the energies that are coming in to meet that. These are energies who are being born now in, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, and so on and so forth. These energies are coming in to basically meet that. I don't want to say challenge, but they're coming in to meet that energy and be like, we are here for this. This is what we're here for. We are here to support this shift. We are here to nurture this shift. We are here to shake things up. We are here to make sure things continue moving on a positive and high frequency trajectory. We are here to create new jobs. We are here to create a new reality, a new earth, a new perspective. These energies are really all here to do that. And they have the support of us as parents who, in what I see and what I notice is that who have had different degrees of spiritual awakening over the last 10 years or more. And that's not a coincidence either. It's not a coincidence that so many people had spiritual awakenings in 2020. That was definitely not a coincidence. Not a coincidence that more and more people, thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023 are waking up to a new reality, a new way of looking at the world, a new perspective, a new way of interacting with themselves and their bodies and their intuition and all that kind of stuff. We are all collaborating here. The souls of our children, us, our ancestors, even the ancestors of ours who are leaving the planet right now, they're collaborating as well with us in this great and beautiful consciousness shift. And I think that it's always interesting to tune into like where that is going and where that is moving. I think that the goalpost shifts very frequently in terms of what this actually means for us and what that looks like. And I think that I am also a big believer in the fact that we can't always know everything and that there is supposed to be a degree and an element of mystery while we're here, as painful as that may be to hear for some people. But it's how can we be present for the changes that are happening right now? And the changes that we're feeling within ourselves and the changes that we're observing in the outside world and the physical reality. And sometimes they can look really chaotic, and most of the time as they do. Sometimes they can look maybe not, maybe it's a more beautiful kind of shift or movement away from or into a different energy. But nevertheless, there is a great cosmic and universal construction and collaboration that is happening with all of us as souls. We are really painting this new picture of our new earth and our new reality together. So it's one of my favorite things to talk about. So
it's mine too. I'm so fascinated, especially because the incarnation cross that human design is moving into in 2027 is my incarnation cross. So Yes.
No way.
So
wow.
I just really am like, I keep having this nudge of like, okay, that's probably what I'm supposed to focus on, because I've been feeling this energy since I've been alive. And now that's where the world is shifting. So finally I get to be like part of this, which is really,
you are here. You're here for it.
For it.
Completely.
Yeah. And let's explain to the listeners, and you explain this very well in the book, even though we're talking about the souls that are coming onto this planet next, are here for the big change. A lot of us souls also came here for that. And I think it started maybe in the 50s or something like that souls were being born every decade to really help harbor this great change. And for some time, maybe we've been a little bit of sleep, and now we're having our spiritual awakening and we're going, oh my gosh, I have a bigger mission than to just get a job, get married, have kids, and retire. Like there's something that's fuel inside my belly that needs to come out.
Yeah.
And I really related to, you talked about 3 different soul groups. And I think one of them was called the activator soul group. Yes. I was like, oh, that's totally me.
Completely. That's okay. So much good stuff here. Yeah. So what you're talking about is one of the things in the book that I was given. To my surprise, I didn't expect for this to be a part of the book at all. But basically, one of the things that I was channeling is these different birth years that kind of represented sort of, the flow of the energies coming in since 1942, which was post-World War II. And how it was explained to me was basically post-World War II, the planet was at a very big tipping point. And it could have, basically the destruction of the planet was highly possible post-World War II, which is kind of funny if you think about it, because you would think, oh, we got through World War II, it's all good. But no, the planet was in a very, very low frequency place at that time. And it was very possible that the destruction of the planet could have happened at that time. And so, of course, when, the planet, the Earth wants to live, she wants to thrive, she wants to be in harmony with the beings that are living on her. And so there's this kind of cosmic orchestration of, okay, things are not in a good place, and let's send in the light, right? The light being these new souls who are bringing in this very specific frequency that the planet needed to tip back into alignment and back into harmony. And the 40s and 50s and the 60s and even the 70s, it was a very difficult time in some ways to be alive. There was different challenges and different difficulties, but for these souls who were coming in at that time, there were just these super high frequency light beings who were here to like tip the planet back in the direction that she needed to be in. And there wasn't support for these children. There wasn't support for these people. And so many of us, I'm talking 40s, 50s, 60s, this is our parents. These are our grandparents. These are our ancestors who are most probably these light beings who came in at this time to help correct the trajectory of the planet. And then these are the people, these are the beings that gave birth to us and to this generation. And now we're looking at this continuation through the generations of how each kind of generation is bringing in a different frequency and is looking to work kind of in a different way. And so, yes, in the book, I do talk about these kind of different, I guess, types of souls and soul energies and what they're bringing in. We could recognize ourselves. We could recognize maybe one of our parents. We could recognize maybe one of our grandparents in some of these energies. And it's a very powerful way to look at the world, and also like what you said, Dayna, of our purpose. I definitely relate to feeling lost during my time here at certain points. But when you realize that you as a soul, without you having to necessarily even do anything, a purpose doesn't necessarily have to be in something that you always do or contribute or something you create or money that you work for or a pension or whatever the thing is. It's sometimes just, there's literally a soul purpose of what your soul came in to remedy, what your soul came in to activate, what your soul came in to prepare the planet for. So you can feel really good that if you are here right now on the planet, you have a purpose. And sometimes that purpose may just be being the lighthouse, which is what I talk about a lot. Some of us are just here to be the lighthouse, to bring the light for others. One of the things I'm thinking about even right now is there seems to be this kind of cool social movement of people going up to random people in the store and just like blessing them with $1,000 in Walmart or this sort of thing. And like, that's a perfect example of using resources and using crowdsourcing and community-based fundraising tactics to literally change the trajectory of one person, but then that creates this ripple effect that person goes on to change another person, and this person goes on to change another person, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's a very powerful way to look at our soul and look at our incarnation and really know that you answered a call, basically. If you're here right now, you answered a call to be here, or somebody said, hey, I need you to bring your beautiful energy to planet Earth right now because planet Earth really needs it and we really need you. And that's one of the things that I wrote in the front of all the books that I had the opportunity to sign. As I said to most people, I said, thank you for being here. We needed you so bad. Thank you for bringing your individual and unique light to this planet. It is so important. And I feel that is like on a soul level. I've had someone say that to me before, and it's so simple, but there's such a soul recognition and a resonance to somebody saying to you, you are so needed. I am so glad you're here right now. Thank you for coming. Even if you didn't want to come, even if it's been the most challenging journey you've ever had, thank you for being here. You are helping the shift. We are so grateful for you. I mean, there is a resonance to that, right? Like you feel it. I'm sure people in your audience are feeling it because there is something in our soul that knows that we answered a call to be here. We are sent here for a reason. We are here to support a shift. And that shift is happening. And sometimes it may seem like it's happening really beautifully and quickly. Other times it may seem like it's happening really slowly and it's torturous and chaotic. But we recognize those words because there is a deeper meaning to why we're all here.
Yes,
right now.
My heart center was just exploding when you were saying that. And I feel like it's so simple. We're looking for our purpose in like the craziest, deepest, dark places or in some type of accolade when it's like, you chose to be here. So if you guys are listening today and you chose to be here, you did. And whether that just means, like you said, being the lighthouse, shining out your light, your purpose is more energetic than anything else.
Yes.
Let's bring it back to intuition and parenthood,
Mm-hmm.
because you talk about this in your book. And I was laughing out loud last night when I was reading. You were talking about how these kids that are coming in might be more sensitive and that
Yeah.
they might be a little bit different. And I love the idea of more intuitive parenting, because I think we all can agree one kid is not the same as the other. And not all of the tricks, tools, and modalities are going to work for every kid in
Yeah.
regards to parenting. And so I like to use my intuition a lot. And it was really funny when you described what kids might be sensitive with or what they might be doing. You said some kids at a very young age may stare at people like they're staring into their souls. And my daughter, for sure, has always done that. We've been like, oh my gosh, what does she know about me? Like she really stares at people.
Yes, I love it. I've talked to parents who have had that same experience, and they're like, strangers are kind of unsettled. I think it's so funny because it's just like their they're locked in, and it literally is like a soul gaze. I mean, it's just natural for them to just do this soul gazing where they're really seeing you and they're seeing past just your physical form. They're seeing your soul, they're seeing your aura. There's so many different things they could be seeing. They're seeing your guides, they're seeing your past lives together. I mean, they're just able to be there and get there. And I believe that lots of like children in our generation, in the years that I was born and things like that, we had that. I mean, I had that when I was a kid, but I think that it's just these new energies, these new children are just their sensitivity dial is just tuned up a couple more degrees than maybe even we were, just even half a degree sometimes, but that can be all it takes, where they're very sensitive. They're very sensitive. And I just had a woman ask me today, like, my son was born in 2020 and he's 3 now, and his sensitivity has just increased and increased and increased since he was born. And she's almost like, I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to support him. And that's very real. That's a very real thing for a lot of parents, where they have these beautiful beings here and they're almost kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to find the information on how to actually effectively support you without creating trauma, really, or causing you to shut down your abilities. That's a big thing that parents ask me too, of like, I'm afraid that I'm through my own, fear or my own whatever, that I'm going to cause my child to kind of like shut down their intuition or shut down their intuitive abilities or shut down their sensitivity because they just don't know how to deal with it. They can feel like a lot of pressure, I think, for a lot of parents. It can feel like a big job, in addition to all of the other things that parents have to do. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, I have to think about this too. And wow, this is a lot. So I think that's part of the reason that I wrote the book, Dayna, is I wanted there to be, and it's certainly not a complete list, but I wanted it to feel like parents could kind of go and have some tools and some awareness around, okay, these are some of the things that I can do, or these are some of the things that I can be aware of to support my sensitive child in their incarnation, supporting the chapter is called Supporting Your Wise Child on Their Journey on Earth, which is really what we all want to do, I think, as parents, is how can I know my child is so wise and they've got so many gifts and so much love and intelligence to bring to this planet, and how can I make sure that they're able to do that without getting tripped up or without getting locked in a projection or a fear or an insecurity or whatever. So that's a really big reason why I wrote the book. And it's certainly, my work is certainly not done. I think that you've mentioned a couple of times that you love the stories. And it's funny because I've gotten that feedback so much of people like, can you write a book of like just stories? And I think I will, actually. I think I will do that because I love story. Like that's what I go to. I love to read other people's stories. And I think that storytelling is really an element that's very important. That's how our ancient ancestors, that's how we carried along and knowledge and wisdom was through storytelling, sitting around the fire and receiving information in that way. And so I think that like on this platform, even we're storytelling together, we're sitting together and we're telling stories and people are listening. And then I think in written format, that's also very important and also very powerful. So I really believe that storytelling is a very important way to support parents in supporting their intuitive children. Like, hey, this is what my child is doing. Even just you pick that piece up of like, oh my gosh, my child does that too, right? You pick that up and you're kind of like, okay, so it's not just her, it's not, there's other parents and children who are having this experience. And I think that's really how we learn and how we grow, is by sharing information and sharing stories and then coming together and kind of be like, okay, what are you doing for that? Okay, well, I'm doing this. Great. And then I'll look at this. I think it's a very powerful thing to be doing right now. So
that's so powerful. And I'm so excited that you're thinking about doing that. And what a great recognition of kind of a lost art form of sharing stories around the fire. And that's exactly what I did for my home birth. I would say that Ina May's book where she just has a lot of women's birth stories. I would just open up one chapter at the end of the night and read one. And it just made me feel, it made me recognize that so many different things could happen. It also brought awareness of what was possible. And then knowledge was power. And I didn't have fear when I went into it, because I knew it could go all these different ways from all these beautiful stories that I've read.
Exactly. That's amazing. Ina Gaskin, I talked about her in the timeline of birth in the book. She was just a pioneer for birth. She started writing in like the 70s, I think, or maybe even earlier. And I think she's still writing today. She's still alive and she's still sharing information, which is just incredible.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but exactly. You're right. It's very important, whether that's birth. And that's the thing. You bring up a great point even too, Dayna, is like, I think that part of my work is that there is this kind of collective storytelling around pregnancy and around birth. And my thing is like, let's rewind it even back a little further. Let's go preconception. Let's go conception. Let's go talking to your children while you're pregnant. Let's go preparing for birth, all these things from an energetic and from a spiritual perspective.
Yes. Yeah. So what would you recommend? There was one question that I got from someone who said, my boyfriend and I are unsure if we want to have a child. So as you were saying that, I was just thinking, that's even the pre phase. What would you recommend to her for where to get started on, she doesn't want to miss her window in regards to age, but they just haven't felt the pull yet.
And that's okay. I do write there is a little section or a little blurb on that in the book of deciding to have a child in the first place. And how do you even come to that decision? And there's so many different factors. Or maybe you're somebody, I talked to a lot of people who are like, I never wanted children. I never wanted children until one day I woke up and all of a sudden I was just being beaten down with this biological and physical and spiritual and energetic urge to have a child. What do you do then? You thought your whole life you weren't going to have a child. You told everybody in your life you were never having children. And then all of a sudden so there is all of these different kind of possibilities and scenarios. And what I would say is that if you're kind of unsure, it could just be that, and again, I don't know this person specifically in their scenario, and I'd have to kind of know it more detail to go into it. But if you're unsure and you're like, we don't really know, and we're not really against it, but we're not necessarily for it, I would just say, set the intention. One of the things I say in the book is like, I'm at peace with my decision of currently being unsure if I want children. That may change. I'm at peace with my current decision that I'm unsure if I want children. That just kind of gives your body and your energy like a kind of an anchor point of sort of like, okay, this is where I'm at right now. I am at peace with it. And I'm also leaving room for if that changes or if I get more clarity in the future. That may change 6 months from now to I'm at peace with my current decision to not have any children in this lifetime. And then you kind of anchor that in. Or I'm at peace with my decision that I actually never thought I wanted children, but now I think I do. And I'm at peace with that. I'm good with that. So I think it's just about giving yourself permission to feel unsure. And that may actually be, there may be a purpose of the uncertainty for you and your partner. Maybe there's something that you have to navigate through that uncertainty together. There's something you have to learn to communicate through that uncertainty together. It can also be as simple as just like you're actually waiting for the soul of a future child to drop in and to start to make contact with you. Sometimes that is the case for some people. They feel unsure. They don't really know. They don't really feel any energy around them. They don't really feel called to have children. They're maybe not really even interested in children. And then all of a sudden, the energy comes close to the family and that totally changes. And so I see that all the time. And I'm not saying that that's the case for every person, but be at peace with your uncertainty right now. There's a reason you're uncertain. There's a reason you don't feel particularly inclined one way or another. Let that play out and be open for changes in the future. And then you can kind of go from there. You could start, if you're unsure, you could start meditating. You could start doing some of the tactics and tools that I mentioned in the book around how to connect and how to communicate and see what happens. Or you wait and you see what happens. So that would be my answer for that person.
And personally, I would recommend, if you're really, really freaking out about it, to see a medium, because it is a little helpful. Thank you, Emily. This conversation has been so expansive and so incredibly informative. And I think the biggest takeaway is just you're bringing the awareness that we can even communicate with our babies in the first place prior to them being here. And that don't feel insecure about where you're at in your journey. If you're already a parent, you can communicate with your kid's soul. Even if they're 10 years old, you can say, hey, what do you need right now? I can communicate with you. Or if you're not ready to get ready, or if you're in conception phase, or if you're about to birth, there's so much good information in your book. So go out and get it, guys. It's called A Cosmic Bond by Emily Greene. also known as Emily the Medium. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Anything on your heart? Anything you have coming up?
Thank you, Dayna. Thank you for allowing me to be here and share about this work and the book and asking such beautiful questions. This was really such a portal of a conversation. I absolutely loved it. And I loved talking with you and connecting with the energy of your audience. Just sending love out. This is what I want to say. Actually, this is my closing message, is just sending love out to every single one of you who's listening to this right now, who has this in your ears or in your car or playing out loud on a speaker or wherever you are. There's so much support wherever you're at on your journey that's available to you, whether that's coming through me or this book or this conversation or through another medium or through another modality or through another, stream or channel, whether that's coming through your own intuition or a dream. There's so much information, support, and communication that's available to you at all times. And I just really empower you to know that it's possible for you to receive that again now and in the future. So just big thanks to you and your audience. And yeah, as far as me and what I have coming up, I'm kind of just taking the summer and integrating after all of the work that it took to get this book out here. And we'll see what's next in the fall. I might do like a little book tour and kind of coming to cities near you across the US. I'm actually doing one in Denver in August. So that's happening. If you're in the Colorado, Denver area and you're interested in coming, you can send me a message on Instagram. I'm at Emily the Medium. And then I'll probably be doing some other cities across the US probably this fall or even into 2024. So that's what's up. And you can get the book on Amazon. It'll be coming soon to other marketplaces like Barnes & Noble and things like that. But for now, the best place to get it is on Amazon or on my author website, emilytheauthor.com. You can order a copy from me directly, whatever your preference is. And you can also get it on Kindle and Kobo and all kinds of e-readers and things like that. Other than that, I think that's it. I think that's all I want to share.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
Oh, that's beautiful. And yes, I mean, of course, that it's time for you to relax and enjoy what you just birthed into the world, which is this book. So.
Yeah, it was a baby. It was a book baby for sure. It required a lot of my attention and love and life force and everything else, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It was a beautiful journey.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Emily.
Thank you, Dayna. I'm so grateful. Thank you again for having me and asking such beautiful questions and holding such beautiful space.
Ordinary Magic is a Lit Path Studios production, produced by Jamie Gale and Dayna Faye. Music is by Shane Ivers. Until next time, I wish you many powerful moments of ordinary magic.